So remember how I said I wasn't going to buy any more books and I was going to go through what I already have? Okay, so I got these for Christmas presents. So that's how we're going to get around the fact that I have more books. Because I didn't buy them for myself, right? Okay, that's what we're going to say. That's what we're going to go with. So I'm excited though. I got 2 Daily Grace Co studies for Christmas this year. I have one on Revelation. So this is Revelation, the end of time, and the eternal king. And then there's one on Hebrews, which I have not studied Hebrews a lot. So I'm excited about this one too. This is Jesus is Better, Living for the One Who is Worthy, a study of the book of Hebrews. Now they have spiral bound studies and they have hardcover. I got the 2 hardcover studies. So let's just take a look at these here. All right, so this is going to be a 9. Whoa. This is like, I don't know if you can see that. When I turn to this page, it's like the font is like double. Like it's like the printer messed up. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like going blind? What's going on with my eyes? Am I having some kind of medical issue? Because I looked at it and I was like, whoa. Okay, it's fine. Everything's fine. I'm okay. I just looked at that for a second. I was like, what just happened? So anyway, this is a 9-week study. It starts out with study suggestions, how to study the Bible, the attributes of God, timeline of Scripture, meta-narrative of Scripture, and then it goes into the separate weeks here. So it's going to break Hebrews down. Let's go through these resources in the beginning here. These are in most of the Daily Grace Co studies now. I probably have showed them to you before. All right, so we have an introduction and a memory verse for each week. It says they're going to walk you verse by verse through this rich text of Hebrews that ties the Old and New Testament together. Love that. And we will discover the truth that Jesus is better than anything else this world has to offer. And we will learn to live out this truth with our very lives. Okay, this is that double font again. I hope it's not going to be like that throughout this book because I have not paged through the whole thing. Hold on, give me a minute. It's going to bother me. Because that is making my eyes really freak out when I look at that. I don't see it anywhere else. That's fine if it's just in the beginning. I'm not going to complain about that. But I'm like, oh man, if this is all through the study, I may have a bit of a complaint about that, as my eyes are not going to be able to handle that. I don't see it anywhere else, though. Okay. Sorry about that. It's like, woo, that's not going to work. Okay, so here's week 1, day 1, a first look at the letter to the Hebrews. So you're going to read Hebrews 1 through 13. So I think we're just going through the whole thing. I think that's the whole book of Hebrews. Am I right? I think we're just doing an initial going through it to read through it. Yes, we're going to read through the entire letter. It says, might seem like a lot for one day. Sure does, but that's okay. One of these days that I'm off of work here, maybe I'll do that. All right, so just to kind of familiarize you with the book in general, and then it gives you 3 study questions, was there any verses or passages that stood out to you? What was confusing? What questions do you have? What's your first impression, etc. Then we're going to get into reading smaller chunks. Thank goodness, that's a lot of reading for one day, even for me. Okay, so this is read Hebrews 1:1 to 4 and 13:20 to 25, and then you're going to get your commentary in the book from the authors here, and then you get your study questions. I like Daily Grace Co studies because, especially when I'm busy, because I feel like I'm diving in and I'm using my own Bible and I can use whatever translation I want, but at the same time, it's not oh my gosh, a day's study is going to take me 2 hours, but I'm flying around after work and have a million things going on, which yes, I know I need to work on that too, but it's not overwhelming. You read your scripture, you can use a study Bible if you want, or whatever translation you want. You read your 3 pages, 4 pages, whatever it is in your book, and then you have some study questions to answer. There's some room here. There's not a ton of room, and there's not space between the questions, so probably using a journal or a notebook would be beneficial. But this is thick paper, so you could definitely write on this. You could write here, up here, around here, backwards. No, just kidding. But whatever you wanted to do there. And this paper would hold up pretty well. We're going to get some context here about who possibly wrote Hebrews. As you know, probably we don't have a concrete answer on that, but there's some guesses that people have based on some evidence. Okay, the next one then, oh, I like this. We're adding in different books of the Bible. I'm such a nerd with that. Like, I like when you're reading through a book of the Bible, but then you're tying it into other books in the Bible. That's my major nerdiness coming out there. But anyway, so read Hebrews 1, 1 to 3, John 1, 1 to 3, Ephesians 1, 20 to 23. And then again, you get your study questions. I'll just read a few. Why is the Old Testament important for believers to study even today? Why is it helpful to know that Jesus is a prophet, priest, and king? How might remembering these distinct roles bring you comfort? Okay, so I won't read through too much more of that. You get the gist. That's how this whole book is laid out. I don't want to take too much of your time here. But there also is, at the end, there's a glossary as well, some different terms. Bibliography. That's our Hebrew study. All right, now this is Revelation. Revelation actually has a dust jacket, so this is what it looks like underneath. I like the dust jacket look of that better, but I am going to pull that off just because it's going to mess with me while I'm trying to go through this. I'm trying to see if I missed anything there. All right, so this one, I've studied Revelation a couple times, but you can never study Revelation too much, in my opinion, because I'm never going to 100% understand everything in it perfectly. And I don't think, no matter how many times we study it, I don't think we ever will. I don't think we're necessarily supposed to all the time, but, some faith comes into it as well. But it's just a really great book to study. Very interesting, in my opinion. You're going to get the same content in the beginning as you did in the other book that I read to you. This one is going to be an 8-week study. At the end, we'll get an article on what is the gospel as well. So I'll go through all this again. There's a timeline of scripture. All right, study introduction. Okay, so it says, because Revelation is such a difficult book of the Bible to interpret, let me get this on the camera here, we will spend the first 4 days of our study unpacking some essential context. These details will lay the foundation for the rest of the study, equipping you to understand what you read and how you can apply it to your life. First, we're going to look at some of the basic context of Revelation, genre, author, date of writing. Then we'll examine some common approaches to interpreting this book. Sorry, I'm sitting on my leg and it's hurting. There we go. As well as the symbolism found within its pages and its overall structure and organization. So basically they're saying the first 4 days, there's no assigned reading. So they're encouraging you to read through the entire book at your own pace those first 4 days, as they're just building some context to help you understand the book. All right, we have a bonus tips for reading Revelation this week. If you wanted to have a reading schedule for 4 days, it gives you a schedule here. Read 1 to 4, chapters 5 to 11, then 12 to 17, and 18 to 22. All right, so we start out, like I said, talking about like genre and author for the first day. There is some application questions. Usually there's 3 for every day in these studies. Day 2 is date of writing and 4 interpretive approaches. Okay, again, we get our application questions. And then practice this week's memory verse, it says, which I didn't see what it was, but it's at the beginning of the chapter, obviously, the week, I mean. And then you're going to read Revelation 1, 1 to 3. And then, of course, we get our 3 questions again. Then we're going to get into week 2. Week 2's memory verse is Revelation 2, 7. And then we're going to read Revelation 1, 4 to 8. And again, the same layout as before. I like these studies because they break down books of the Bible into manageable chunks. So you can and you're really taking your time going through. It's not like, here, let's study a whole chapter in like 1 or 2 days, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But I just really like how it breaks it down into like 3, 4, 5 verses a day. Really helps me to slow down and understand what I'm reading. So I'm really excited to get into these. I know I said I wasn't getting any more books, but like I said, this was a gift, so it doesn't count, right? So I'm going to definitely add these into my beginning of the year study rotation here, along with the 1,000,001 other books I need to do. But these are going to be towards the top of my list because I love studying Revelation. And to be honest, I haven't done a lot in Hebrews. So I know I'm missing out there. It's a really rich book, but there's a lot to be learned from. So I wanted to get this study in too. So these again are from Daily Grace Co. We have Revelation, the end of time, and the eternal king. And then Jesus is better, living for the one who is worthy, a study of the book of Hebrews. So definitely check those out if you're interested in doing a deep dive in those books of the Bible.